My dear brothers and sisters, in today's both the readings, we heard something very important, something which we can reflect upon. Both of them speak about God intervening in human history. First reading, we heard about the birth of Samson, born to his parents at an old age. In the Gospel, we heard about announcement of the birth of John. Let's reflect on the Gospel passage for a while. But to do that, let's go back into history of the Jewish times. In the Jewish times, there was the priestly tribe or clan that would serve in the temple in the interior, offer incense to God, also sacrifices. And there were 24 divisions made of the priest. And each priest had a chance to serve only 2 weeks in the whole year. Now we heard about Zechariah, Elizabeth. Zechariah was a priest, and his name means God has remembered. Elizabeth also came from the priestly family, and her name can mean my God's oath. We heard that both were saintly people, and yet they had no child. If you go back again, the Jewish will find the people believed if people had no children, either they had sinned or that their ancestor had sinned. So they connected like barrenness to unfaithfulness and therefore God's punishment. So Luke is trying to show in this passage, both in the first and the second passage today, that there's no connection between sin and punishment at all. Elizabeth, Zechariah were holy people. They did not sin at all, neither their ancestors, because they came from the priestly class families. And therefore, Luke showed that there is no connection between sin and punishment. What lesson do we take from here? To believe and to live in hope. God intervenes when He thinks it is the best for humankind in history, in our life. Not always, but when He thinks is best and good for ourselves and for the years to come and for generations and people. Therefore, we need to live in hope. In our time, we may not get God's so-called angels to intervene in our life in daily events. But we have angels in different, so to say, form. God intervenes through people and to events of the day. When we are in difficulties, we are in so-called any sort of trouble or any such called, we ask for advice or people advise us. That could be a sign of intervention. Or God intervenes to events of our life. We need to reflect. Yes, does that event have a message in our life? And after we reflect, we need to discern. Look at the life of St. Ignatius of Loyola. When he was defending the fort of Pamplona, the event took place. The cannonball struck him. That was a turning point in his life. Look at the life of St. Francis Xavier. He was studying with Ignatius at a famous college. Xavier, staying with Francis and other companions, was an event that changed his entire life. Therefore, events and people change our life. But we need to reflect and discern. Discern whether it is God's will or it is the devil who is trying to come as a good angel to say it is God's will. So therefore, let's not look at God sending angels all the time as He sent to Zechariah, giving good message. Let's also reflect on people advising us when we have so difficulties. Maybe it's God's voice telling us to the persons or to events or even circumstances. But we need to reflect and discern. Now, as we prepare ourselves for this great event in our life, how are we going to welcome the Lord in our homes, in our hearts? Well, think about it. And today we pray special way for our own state. We celebrate the Liberation Day. We ask ourselves, are we in Goa, staying really liberated. What do we need to be liberated from? So I paused for a while and asked God, please help us to look, to hear a voice when you speak to us through people, to our life events in the world, and to circumstances.